So, in the first episode of my actual stories that I was talking about, and based on some of the products that I brought back, I'm hoping that this format has some legs. But as I said, I think most people would have maybe expected me to start with canned coffee, as it is a staple of Japan and everybody gets excited about it. I get excited about it. I will do an episode on it. But I'm more choosing to start the stories where I want to tell the stories that I want to tell first. And probably actually the idea for this format came from corn soup, or canned corn soup specifically, and from a vending machine. The reasons why will become apparent later. But first, just a bit about the actual product. It's a very interesting product. It is certainly not something that I've ever seen in Australia. We get packet soup. We get stuff that you mix up. We get canned soup, I guess, especially concentrate. And even sometimes then not particularly concentrated. You can eat it straight from the can. But nothing that I think has represented itself as a snack, and nothing so convenient as to be able to be bought from most street corners in a even reasonably sized city, even not sometimes out in the middle of nowhere. This is not going to become a vending machine tale, but again, I will come to those because they're worth telling. The corn soup I'd sort of heard about before going, and thought that was a pretty funny thing, and that I really only bought this can as a bit of a joke. I have to try it. I think I'm like to think I'm reasonably adventurous when it comes to trying new foods, and especially if they have something to offer over and above something I can't get anywhere else, especially at home. This one is by Sapporo. It looks like Poco and Sapporo have joined forces. I did not know that until actually reading my can. All the big players make them. Asahi and, well, as I said, Sapporo, Daido, Itoen, and I think even Boss have one as well. It is quite a thick soup. It's like a cream-based soup with big chunks of corn in there, and they are chunks of corn. There's nothing, no getting around that this is just corn with some stuff, some, soup. When I tried it, I was sold straight away. It's a bit of an odd sensation. It's a bit like drinking boba, but drinking all the boba at once, like just upending a boba instead of going through a straw. And you get all these chunks, and they're sweet. And of course, well, I may have mentioned that we were there during winter. And so having a hot cup of soup just as a snack replacement, as I think I had this one because I wanted some really quick breakfast. I think it's also quite charming. Again, this is not the thrust of this story, but the koto koto writing here is the onomatopoeic word for simmering and that sort of bubbling sound. And yeah, so I think it's quite cute. Of course, as with all packaging, it's quite cute. Yeah, so canned soup. So corn soup, how do we come by a story of corn soup, and how does that go? It's a bit of a tenuous link, but here we go. So I was enamored with the corn soup, and I wanted to take some home, and I thought it was allowable. I thought you could take it wasn't particularly a pressurized can, so I thought you could take that on the plane in carry-on and luggage. And when we hit the customs scanner, when they scanned through, they came to my bag and they asked to have a look, and they found the corn soup and told me, no, you can't have that, and basically apologized for taking it away, but then did. This is the crux of my story. People will tell stories about omotenashi, the Japanese hospitality, basically looking after your guests all the time and looking out for people around you, and always giving that good level of service. Sure, that happens, and I think that story's been told a lot of times, but the way I interpret it was just more pragmatic than that. There was no need to shame me about having made the mistake of having it in my bag. There was no reason to make a big song and dance, to intimidate, to really make more of a big deal about it than, hey, we saw something on the X-ray scanner, radiograph, and we need to check it out. So we're allowed to do that, but excuse me for doing that. And here's the thing that you're not allowed to do. Okay, well, that's the end of the thing because we caught it and it really wasn't that big of a deal. Off you go now. And it was a very pragmatic approach to it. It didn't make you feel like you'd done something wrong or that there was anything other to do than just solve the problem. The nicest and easiest and most pragmatic way possible. And I think that's what this story comes down to. It's that nature. I don't necessarily find it here, both out in public or at work or with rules that get put down. They don't seem to be always aimed at the most pragmatic, non-accusatory way of dealing with a problem. To further illustrate this, another very similar story that from in my head just clicked together like magnets. We were coming out of the station, one of the stations. I can't remember which station it was. Actually, I get a feeling it was the old Harajuku station, not there anymore. We were coming out of the station and the chap behind us hit the barrier guards and his card didn't work. Now, I'm not saying I got the vibe from this guy that I thought he was trying his luck at attempting to move through the barriers without having to discharge any credits on his card, or probably what he very well knew to be a discharged card in the first place. It's ridiculously easy to get money onto your card and use it versus, say, the Mikey system in Australia, where, sure, you can put it on the 7-Eleven. Are there many 7-Elevens? Yeah, you can put it on over the phone. Does it take quite a while? Yes, it does. In Japan, catchphrase, in Japan, it is ridiculously easy to put money on that card, actually, and to take it off as well. You can use it for more than just travel. It almost works like a tap and go card here for the banking system. So this chap probably knew his card was depleted of funds. And he went to go through the barrier and he stopped. Now, in Australia, that would be met by a swarm of people, a swarm of authorised officers. And indeed, I've had this lovely experience myself in the past where through some, either you do know or you were innocent in knowing, which was my case, you were met with, oh, no, usher over here. No, go speak to this person. This is what happened to me in Australia. Oh, no, we can't sell you one here. You have to go over there. So I go over to that turnstile and go through. Oh, sorry, you don't have on your okay, well, you need to go and speak to this person. And then there's a person in a long overcoat and they were issuing fines. Sorry, making a report. And, you know, in the media, and social media, we see people getting tackled to the ground for not having or trying to evade fares or things like that, or people getting fined where they were either confused or didn't have the right money getting on a tram, and all sorts of excuses can be made about you should have got it done beforehand, you could get off and then get the things, you should have had the right coins. We can reflect back and go, oh, well, they should take card and all this type of thing. But again, it is certainly, and whether you've experienced this or not, whether you've been tackled to the ground or your friends have been, or you've met some overly excited folk ready to issue you a report. It was a fine. There was no reason it was going to get overturned. And people can go to court and have them overturned. So contrast this with this chap, and I said, let's even assume that he knew he was trying to get away with it. Meets the turnstiles, it doesn't work. The guard next to the turnstiles, or the barriers, I should say, comes out, and he doesn't shame the man. He doesn't go into a lengthy diatribe about he should have checked his balance beforehand, or topped up, or put on auto debt, or any of these things. I watch this man just simply explain to the person that, yes, obviously their card is out of credit, and could you go to the side here, please, where there is a machine where you can pay. So the train line got their fee, as they would have wanted. The man, no one had to deal with finding him and all the related on costs that has. No one yelled at him. They simply directed him, polite as can be. Now, whether the man was trying to evade or not, or he made an innocent mistake or not, is beside the point. They took such a pragmatic approach to it and just said, to the side there, you can top your card up. The guy topped his card up, went through the barriers. No problems. Do people try and get away with it? Do people fair evade? I'm sure they do. It is generally a society that follows the rules and things, and I might have another funnier story on that, about where we parked our bikes. But again, it wasn't even to the level. I think sometimes when people talk about Omoltenenshi, it can come across as fawning, like, oh my God, everybody's so nice and lovely. And in general, I mean, look, that was our experience. Again, it wasn't a very stressful experience. I was there, we were there as tourists, so I think that automatically brings a certain level of expected nicety with it. But it wasn't. What struck me was the pragmatic nature of it. One further story about this pragmatic nature, and one that I know that some people will disagree with me about, especially those that have to drive or ride motorbikes there, is, and I must say, I have been made aware by friends that maybe this is not a Japanese-related thing, but rather the stark contrast between Australia and other areas. Needless to say, though, my experience is of Australia, so I will compare. You'll forgive me, I hope. We were walking down, so this is my daughter and I, we were walking down this suburban street. We were going to Studio Ghibli, if that's of interest. Not quite wide enough to have two cars go, or at least one car go by if the other one was stationary, not so two cars driving. There was a few pylons that were sort of out onto the road. And I watched this ballet occur. So we're walking down, we're down the street. There is a car coming from behind us. It's going quite slow. Speed limit's quite slow anyway. It's going quite slow. It sees another car coming from the other direction. They both slowed down. Cyclists that came from behind us, they went around us, giving us enough berth. They went between the car was stationary, between the two cars, and they headed off. One car, I think it was the distant car, let this car drive past first, and then the other car drove through. And there wasn't any honking, there was no flashing of lights. Everybody sort of knew and understood what their role in this whole thing was. We sort of didn't. We were just walking along, oh, what's going to happen here? And it was just such a considerate, pragmatic solution to the whole getting past people. Now, if you watch dashcam video, you'll see Australian and American examples and English examples of people trying to fight for right of way and to get through, and it's a very individualistic pursuit. But people do talk about one of the benefits of Japan being a collective society is this nature of, I guess, pragmatism and being nice and letting people through and not yelling at them and just solving the problem in a nice way. And it does come across as being polite and pleasant. And you know what? Even if it's faked, as some people often talk about. They say, "Oh, it's all put on. It's all just expected." But you know what? It makes a day much nicer, and that's one of the lasting those memories I have of my short trip there, and one of the reasons that I would love to go back there. So there's a story about canned soup that had almost nothing to do about canned soup, that ended up being about pragmatic problem solving that is just pleasant. If you want to know why I'm telling you stories about corn soup and people being polite, you can have a look at my previous video explaining why I'm telling stories like this, perhaps also explaining it to myself. Next time, I'm going to be talking about jelly drinks. That's a bit of a busted up can, but you know, it flew back in my bag.